Hello, buddy. Today we're speaking with Shivani Narang. She works with founders and executives who look successful on the outside, but inside they're quietly struggling and not realizing that they're burning out. She works with executives and founders to develop strategies to come out from burnout. What I really like about her that she's speaking from her own experience. Before we begin, I would like to welcome Shivani to our channel and thank her very much for taking the time and speaking with us. Thank you so much, Shivani, and welcome to our channel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vijay, for actually having me here.
Shivani, please tell us, what did your career look like before burnout became your work?
Sure. It was a mix of a lot of things, to be honest. Immediately before the burnout recovery was the burnout, which came from the job just before that. So I was working as a strategy consultant just before I jumped into this field. And that's where I had my experience with burnout. Not for the first time and not for the last time, actually. Um, Before that, it was a mix of a lot of things. I've worked with Axis Bank as a credit analyst. I've worked with JP Morgan. I've worked with school briefly. I have also dabbled in, done my course in fashion designing. I've worked as a fashion designer for a little bit. I've also tried my hand at entrepreneurship. I've tried to start my own food venture as well, and I've also done my master's, my MBA in finance. So I've had a mix of both, the creative side and also the professional side of it, the corporate side of it, and entrepreneurship as well. And I've seen the work, the pressure, the kind of life that we have, the balance or the lack of it, and the burnout that stems from different places and how it hits you differently as a founder and how it hits you very, very differently when you're a corporate employee. So, yeah.
So, what early stages of burnout did you ignore?
Um, I honestly ignored all signs of burnout, early and late stage of, signs of burnout. I ignored them all, which is when I could say the entire house came crashing down. Um, Starting from the very small symptoms, backache, back pain, you just think that it's a posture issue. You're probably not sitting right. It was COVID time. You're working at home. You're working at your makeshift, office arrangement, your desk setup. So you probably think it's probably because of that. You're not sitting right. Two things like acne, hair fall, your I remember my blood reports were all over the place. I had a health checkup and everything was out of range. It's like getting, when you're in school and you get your answer sheet back and everything is underlined in red. It was literally like that. Um, to the sense of anxiety, not wanting, dreading the Monday, not wanting the Sunday to end. In fact, the kind of depression sets in, on a Sunday evening itself.
Yeah.
Um, you're always on, you're constantly wired, you're never able to disconnect. And this anxiety and your chest tightens and these palpitations that you have, none of it was normal, but I think just we just realized all of these way too late. And it was only when I had a complete breakdown and I could not go any further that I actually quit. And it took me a while to actually realize what this whole experience was and that this was burnout and how is it that I could basically recover from it. And that's how the journey basically started of identifying what needs to be done to recover from this traumatic experience.
Yeah, I agree with this, Shivani. So, some time back, now it's been a while now. I was working in a certain organization. So, when the weekend used to start, when the Sunday was about to end, in the evening, the anxiety, it starts creeping, it starts creeping, it starts creeping. Oh, you think, oh, Monday is come, oh, I have to do that thing again. So, I can understand what you're saying now. It starts creeping and slowly, slowly, slowly. And then you start becoming irritable with the family, you start shouting this, that, all unnecessary things start
Exactly.
doing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And the worst part is that, especially for people who are in their jobs, they don't realize that it's not them, it's the job that's actually making them miserable. The first thing that, or one of the things that happens when you're burning out is also the fact that you feel, as an individual, that you are someone who lacks or doesn't have the skill or doesn't have the capability to meet the demands of the job. But the truth is always the fact that your workplace is toxic. It the, the you know the thing that we don't often talk about is how burnout actually slowly erodes your confidence and your belief in yourself. That happens gradually and over time. The organization makes you feel that you're the only one who's struggling. They make you feel isolated in that, and they make you feel like there's a problem with you.
yeah,
So that's one thing that I really hope that people understand, that it's not them, it's their job.
yeah. Actually, it's not the person; it's a job. So many years ago, when I was working for a certain another organization, the boss used to say in such a way that he used to blast and tell the team is not good enough, not good enough. It creates a certain environment that you start doubting yourself, that fear starts creeping, and you start questioning what you're doing. Basically, it's running in panic mode. Any mistake, any step you take, you start thinking, oh, "Am I making a mistake here? Am I? Is it me? Is it me?" And so you start realizing that it's not you. It's a system. It's environment. Whatever you call it. It's that thing.
Exactly. Exactly. In fact, some time back, I had someone who took the assessment on the website, the free burnout assessment that I have on the website. She took the assessment and she came in for, a call with me. And even when I could clearly see that she was burnt out, not to the extent that I see a lot of other people not having a very high score, but she was still burnt out. She had already quit her job, which was a great thing. She realized that she couldn't go on any longer. She had quit her job before she came in to see me. Um, but even when she did, uh, she still spoke highly of her ex organization, you know. And I was slightly cautious to kind of break it to her that her ex organization wasn't as good as she still believed it was, that it was the organization that caused the burnout. So eventually, with some time and with some sensitivity, I did break it to her, but it was kind of sad to see how her confidence was shattered. She was scarred, and not confident of stepping into another job, but she still felt that it was her and it was not her previous organization that actually got her to a point where she was.
So, what is the name of a website? So, who is watching this video? They can come and check it out.
Sure, it's healingtogether.in. There you can read about my story. You can take the free burnout assessment as well, after which you will get your free score and a report which tells you where you are on the level of burnout and what is it that you need to do right now and what is it that you can do over a period of time to kind of prevent yourself from slipping on that radar and also recover from it. And book a call with me as well to discuss the reports.
So, Shivani, after that 2 a.m. breakdown, what changed inside you?
Um, Honestly, at that point in time, nothing changed on the outside for sure. But it just felt miserable because if I could go a little into the detail of what happened at 2 a.m. was that this was October and I had taken probably only one off in the entire year. And I was asking for an off. I was asking for 2 days off. I was basically asking for a Thursday and Friday, and I wanted you had to basically tell your employer that you will not be available over the weekend as well, which was a sad part in itself.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I had written a mail saying that I wanted to take Thursday and Friday off, and I wouldn't be available over the weekend as well. And I got a mail back with a response from my manager, a very conditional mail saying that one, I will have to complete everything, all the deliverables before I go, and I think I'd asked for this leave on Monday, probably the same week, Monday or Tuesday, and they said Monday. They said that I'll have to complete all the deliverables before I go. If any changes come, I was working as a consultant, so there was back and forth with the client that was happening at that point in time. And if any changes are requested by the client, I will have to come back on my leaves and do it after office hours. After I'm done with whatever I'm taking a leave for, I will have to address those changes. And uh, officially, Saturday and Sunday was off for us, and the meeting with the client was happening on a Saturday, and I would have to be available on a Saturday for the meeting with the client. And that actually broke me because I was like, I can't even take for the first time in the year. I'm asking for two leaves together. This would have been literally even actually the first leave in the year that I'd asked for was also like a comp off, so not technically an off. And this was literally for the first two leaves that I'm asking for in the year in October. And this is the kind of response that I'm getting. The conditional acceptance. I don't even know if I can call that acceptance. And that's when I broke down and I was like, how can somebody be so inhuman? And I was questioning myself about why I'm doing this and why I'm still here and how can somebody be so heartless. Um, at that point of time, I basically cried for 3 hours. I wiped my tears and I went back to work at 5 a.m. And I continued to work till 8 a.m. Took a break for 2 hours and then again went back to work at 10 a.m. The next day. So, and then 10 a.m. is when basically I quit. And I said, I can't do this anymore. It's just not happening. I can't take this anymore. And I have nothing left to give. So it completely shifted after
So, what did all these experiences teach you about burnout?
that. The most important thing is it slowly creeps up on you. You don't realize that it's happening. We ignore it as exhaustion. We normalize it as stress. We think this is normal. We think that there's something wrong with us. We start losing our confidence and belief in ourselves. We start feeling isolated. And the worst part that I learned about it was that we usually wait to crash before we recognize it and we take any action. So, which is why I built the assessment so that people, even if they feel they're just stressed and exhausted, and we usually write it off as exhaustion and we push ourselves even more, thinking that we are not doing enough. And the same thing that you would probably accomplish in 4 hours, you now take 8 hours to do, right? So your productivity goes down and we think that we are the ones who are lacking. There's something wrong with us. So, which is why I built the assessment so that people could take the assessment at regular intervals and understand if they're already on the radar and stop and take the interventions, make the interventions that are required at that point of time. So we don't realize until we crash is the saddest part of it.
Yeah. So, some people think that, oh, I love my work, so I can't burn out. What do you think of such a belief of some people?
I think it's a very common belief and slightly dangerous in that sense. And I completely understand where it's coming from. If it's a job, it's still easy for somebody to say, okay, my job is causing this burnout. So maybe I can, switch jobs. I can probably look for a job somewhere else. I can take a break. But as a founder, it becomes extremely difficult because you can't step away. You are the business at a lot of times, right? So, especially founders will actually say the saying that, oh, I love what I do, so it possibly cannot be burnout. But what people don't realize is that even for a founder, the burnout could probably come from two, three different places. One, a lot of times people start with a specific agenda and a specific purpose and a mission. And slowly over the course of time, because the demand changed, you pivoted, the business changed, the business model changed. Somewhere down the line, it's you've started doing something that you did not really set out to do, right? So you're not exactly passionate about what you're doing right now could be one reason. People who say, "Oh, I love my job. I love what I do. I can't be burning out." What happens with them is that when, especially when you're a founder, there's so many aspects of being a founder, of running a business that come onto your plate that you were never ready for and you never accounted for, right? You will be the finance person, you will be the HR person also in some way because you'll be hiring, you will have to let people go, you'll have to identify how to manage. people's egos, people's sensitivities. You never thought you would be doing that. A lot of people, a lot of founders think, oh, I'm great at building this product. I'll just go and build my own company. But then all of these aspects come in, right? A lot of time they'll be stressed about whether they'll be able to make payroll next month or not. There isn't enough visibility. There isn't enough clarity. You're worried about, okay, even if you had a good month, you're not sure if you'll have a good month the month after that or not. Like, so there's so much that comes on to you. You're wearing so many different hats that uh, burnout slowly creeps in and you don't even realize it. And a lot of times, when we are professionals, for example, if I'm in an IT job, uh, maybe I'm not enjoying the experience of building a product for the employer, and I think maybe I should build this for myself and I can make more money, right? But when we're in a job, we're doing just the part that we're an expert at. But when we're a founder, we're doing so much more about running a business, and nobody taught us about how to run a business, right? About sales, about doing all of those things. When all of that comes in and we start doing less of what we're an expert at and more of all the managerial stuff and the admin stuff, that's when the burnout starts creeping in.
So, according to you, how does understanding one's capacity versus capability reduce self-blame?
So that's, I think, a trap that everybody falls into is that when we take on work, we actually look at our calendars. And that's what I usually tell people that we try and say that, okay, maybe my 12:30 to 1 p.m. slot is free today, so let me try and fit in another meeting. Let me try and fit in another call here. Let me try and fit in like a little more work here. But uh, your calendar could be people try to fill in the empty spaces in their calendar, not realizing that it's not about time, but it's about our bandwidth, right? Our mental bandwidth is very, very different from our time and the time that shows up on the calendar, right?
Yeah.
In fact, there are studies that actually show that even if you, a lot of times this also happens, right? Where people will say, oh, can you please respond to that email? Or can you please take a look at this? This will only take 2 minutes, right? But that's a myth because there's research that actually shows that just context switching and then coming back to the task that you were doing could take up to 23 minutes, right? So we don't realize those things. We don't realize how it works with the mind. And instead of looking at our mental capacity and our bandwidth, there are so many times where you are so exhausted that something will take only 2 minutes, but you just don't have the bandwidth for it,
Yeah.
right? So that's why I tell people that it's important to actually start reframing that statement. And instead of saying, "Oh, I have time for this," instead of that, just start asking yourself if you have the bandwidth for this, and stop being apologetic about not having the bandwidth for something. And that protects your time and that protects your energy because you might have the time, but you might not have the energy or the bandwidth. So that's where the difference comes in, and that's why I think it's really important to switch to uh, the capacity, dialogue rather than um, adding on too much in your calendar and then not being able to do it, and then thinking that, oh, I'm not capable of doing it. You are capable. You probably just don't have the bandwidth for it. So if people start looking at it like that, they'll burn out a lot less for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Shivani, why do you think burnout affects a founder's identity so deeply?
Um, because the founder's identity is very closely related to their venture. And although it's become easier to start your own venture now and be a founder, but um, there's still a lot of, I would say, stigma attached to failure, right? So when a founder basically risks starting something, investing their time, money, energy, a couple of years into something, instead of probably following the linear path of taking up a job, their entire identity is kind of associated with the success and depends on the success of their venture. And if they realize that they are burning out because maybe things are not as great as they should have been, then their identity also takes a hit because if they realize they're burning out, they will have to make some course corrections. Maybe in the way they're running the business, maybe sometimes the answer is that they really need to stop and figure something else out, right? Which is why there's a massive reframe that might be needed for some founders, and that has happened in some of my coaching sessions with some of the clients where they've realized that entrepreneurship was probably not for them. They wound up the business and they actually went back to a job and they were much happier going back. They were coming from a job, they went into entrepreneurship, realized it wasn't for them, burnt out, closed that and went back into a job. And they're much happier in a job now than, what they were when they were a founder. So sometimes the answer could be that as well, that you might have to step away from what you're doing. It could also be that's not the only exit or only option, but sometimes it also could be stepping away from that role and having somebody else coming as maybe the CEO and handling the day to day of the business. So that's the reason. And in our country, there isn't enough emphasis. I think this is a very important point that there isn't enough emphasis on figuring out who we are, and so what we do becomes the thing that we attach who we are to. We attach our identity to what we do. It's not separate from what we do. So because of the fact that those two are merged and fused so closely together, uh, a founder accepting that they're burning out could mean that the startup isn't working out the way it should be, or something needs to change. Maybe they need to pivot, maybe they need to close, and that would mean a change, a shift, or an impact on how they see themselves, which is why it's so difficult for them to acknowledge this.
What do you like to say to someone who's exhausted but afraid to admit it?
Um, it's very important to understand the difference between exhaustion and one, it's very important to understand the difference between just normal exhaustion that goes away with rest versus exhaustion that does not go away with rest. Because if it's something that goes away with rest, great, take a break, take a vacation, you'll be fine. If it's not going away with rest, then it's only a downward slope. If you don't pause and change the way you work, then you're surely headed for a burnout, and you don't want to wait until the time you crash, because when you do, um, everything and everybody around you will be affected. If you're in a job, you will probably not be in a position to take up another job for the next few months. Your earning capacity will be affected. Your faith, your confidence in yourself will be affected. If you're a founder, if you crash, that could mean the business might have to function without you for a few months. You will not be at full capacity. You will not be able to take the right decisions. You will take more time to finish the same task. Your revenue will be impacted. Your profitability will be impacted. And you might not have the ability to, you might not be in a place where your business can run without you, but you'll be forced to step away if you completely crash. So, which is why it's extremely important to understand what your exhaustion is telling you. Which is why I built the assessment as well for people to understand if it's just plain exhaustion, whether it's something that can be fixed with some rest or some small interventions, or it's something that actually needs strategic intervention and burnout recovery plan.
So, Shivani, please tell me, if you could speak to your younger self today, what would you like to tell her?
Um, I think a lot of people would probably, have a different or a more interesting answer to this, because I think a lot of people don't follow what they wanted to follow back when they were young. But I don't think I have anything to say, because I think I've lived my life the way I wanted to. I've done what I wanted to whenever I was, wherever in my life. Um, I made the mistakes at that point of time, and those mistakes, those detours, those steps that I've taken have made me who I am and have brought me to this point where I am right now. Of course, when I look back, I can see I was not very wise at a lot of different points of time in my life earlier. But I think that's just a part of growing up and being where you were. If you're 20, you make decisions based on the brain that you have when you're 20. So yeah, so I don't think there's anything that I would want to say or anything that I would want to change, or that there's anything that I regret. Maybe the only thing that I could probably think of is, if there have been any times where I've listened to other people, although most of the times I don't. I'd say even those few times, just don't listen to people
Yeah,
and just do what you want to do.
exactly, exactly. So thank you so much, Shivani, for sharing all this valuable knowledge and information with us. It was great speaking with you. We wish you continuous success in all aspects of your life. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this video, and have a good day. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much, Shivani.
Thank you. Thanks, Ajay. Thank you so much for having me.